Welcome, everybody. Today is Thursday, July 9th, 2026. My name is Michelle Ford. I'm the coordinator for the California Assembly. And of course, I have a co-coordinator, Janice Toomey, who I don't know what I would do without Janice. Um, Thank you, Janice, for all that you do for our assembly. Tonight is our Countrywide coordinator training, and there is so much to talk about tonight. Now, I think that Anna is already in the room tonight. Bear with me for just a moment.
Yeah, but I've got the Shannon Bookie name on, okay? I've got a...
Girl, I can fix that. No problem. Okay.
I can fix that too.
Anna, thank you. Listen, your article, my phone has been going crazy with concerns. You probably
don't panic, don't
don't panic, don't jump ship, grab an oar, right? Grab an oar, grab a mop, grab a bucket, don't freak out, okay?
Right. Yeah. Obviously I've been up all night. I'm here. I'm fine and you're fine. I don't know what to tell you about Hunter as a person. I don't know what his situation is. I have been told now by various reputable sources that he was blackmailed, but I can't confirm that from him. I haven't talked to him. Just suddenly he went quiet, went silent. Josh Pelletier was able to talk to him at one point, and he basically fired all of the people who have been faithfully helping build the bank all these years, 5 years that people have been volunteering and putting in extreme effort to build the bank. And he just got wildly paranoid and crazy and told all these people that his network, his support network, that they no longer had administrative access to the system. And without any more explanation, without actually telling them they were fired or anything like that, he just, cut everybody to a point where they couldn't access the system or do anything.
Oh, wait, Anna, sorry, before you continue, because what you're saying is so important, but for the perspective of people that are going to be listening to this at a time in the future where they're not status corrected, they have no idea who Hunter is, what are you talking about? It would be really helpful, especially for coordinators and state coordinators and county coordinators, if we could talk a little bit about context. Now, you wrote articles. Okay, you've been writing articles communicating to us so that we're aware of what's going on for a long time. However, we have to remember that those that wrote the Bible, who had no idea, they were given information from a source that they didn't even comprehend was supernatural, and they were documenting the future before the future happened, before it was present. Okay, so this is such an important moment, and you're right here, Anna. You are right here at a moment in time that is intersecting in jurisdictions and understandings and comprehensions. It's just beyond. And so I want to make sure that we don't lose those that are going to be listening to this at a time in the future when we don't know that they don't know what we know. So if it's okay, either I or you, it's up to you. I don't care, whatever it is. We have to provide context for what you're talking about. What you're talking about when you say hunter. Okay, so Hunter, just for everybody, Hunter has been a pivotal man helping all of us to transition from a de facto fiat currency system to a lawful land-based monetary system. And what Anna is talking about right now, she wrote an article early this morning about not just about Hunter, but about the unfortunate events that have led to this miasma of confusion. Like, did Hunter, go astray? Did Hunter get influenced? Did Hunter get kidnapped by wayward, crazy people? Like, what is going on? And the reason that this is important is because many people, not only on this call tonight, but many people that are part of our state assemblies have invested, if you will. They have taken their fiat currencies and put them into these vaults. We call them the vault, right? There's this vault on the land and soil jurisdictions that allow people to have safety over their asset. And what we're witness to today, even though you started out your article reminding us that the money, that the assets are safe, everything is fine, like that isn't the problem, okay? People are still concerned. They're concerned because they've taken their life savings, their assets, their emergency funds, the money that they had under their mattress. They put it into the safety vault with Hunter. And then the article today, despite the assurance that you provided, people are absolutely, unequivocally, not only concerned, but like kind of freaking out. Okay, so you and I, and many on this call, know that nothing will happen without God's. Everything happens because of God's approval, whether it's something that we like or something that we don't like. Everything happens for the highest overall picture of what is planned from the beginning to the end. But people are scared, Anna. And so I hope for those that are listening in the future that are looking back on today, which is, July 9th, 2026, we may look back on today and go, oh, it all makes perfect sense now. Okay.
Well, I don't see why this is. Your records are safe, your accounts are safe. Okay. The bank has been shut down for a couple, 2-3 days. I don't know exactly, a few days until we get everything sorted out and back in order, and all the appropriate changes of key codes and things have happened. Hunter was the director of the bank. The bank was chartered by the American government under American law. We have admiralty law just as well as the Brits do. We have maritime law. We have all the other forms of law to administer banks. So this is 100% American. Everything that we chartered was 100% American. It has no British components. And so it has no British accounts, right? And so everything there is, he's locked out, and the other people that he locked out are on standby so that they know that their efforts have not been wasted. We have some dust up cleanup work to do, but what we chartered we have, and the the records and everything are safe. Okay. Now, otherwise, there's really no changes. It's just that someone that was the director of the bank has been fired. And, unfortunately, people make mistakes, go off the rails, do things that are inappropriate. I mean, if you're the director of a chartered bank, you take other, you have to take the chartering authority into account when you make big changes. You don't just go off and start doing things on your own and just disregarding everyone else. And that's basically what Hunter did, for sure. There have been some things come up that relate to things that happened long before we even knew Hunter, and none of that has anything to do with us or our bank. So, he may be fighting with some old demons or whatever else that are, the result of things that happened before 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 Global Family Bank it was ever thought of. But we have taken the necessary steps and we'll be getting a new bank director. So, I mean, that's really just kind of cleaning up the security so that he can't get back in, or whoever is, acting as his IT staff can't get back in and cause trouble. If that's what they're up to even, then I have no idea. But it doesn't really change a whole lot in terms of the mission of the bank or the direction of the bank or the organization of the bank or anything. So, I'm very sorry that for whatever reason, Hunter has spun out. He started, we know that at one point, employees of this British Crown Corporation, calling itself Go New Earth, downloaded millions of people into the system. And there is just absolutely no way on earth that millions of people knowingly signed up for something like this. This was just a huge download of millions of names with nothing from them saying that they wanted to be part of this or anything. There was absolutely no way that there could be a proper process by which all these people could sign up and legitimately have made the decision to come stand on the land and soil of their country. So what it looks like is that they were tapping into some sort of government database and downloading the information on all these people, right? And transferring these corporations, not the people, the corporations, and the corporation assets, or what they assumed assets were in the corporations, and not telling the people what was going on. Once again, the same old ugly business of, oh, you're stupid. We're not telling you anything. We're doing and representing about you behind your back. Right? And so we know that there cannot be, in the space of time that we've been working in Africa, we know there cannot be millions of people who have made that decision and who provided, reasonable proof of who they are and made a declaration that it's not even possible. So he was doing something maybe out of the goodness of his heart, trying to get help and assistance to Africa, but we cannot do that as a fiduciary because each person needs to know what they're doing and make that declaration on their own behalf and say, yeah, I'm a Namibian and I, was born in such and such village, or, it doesn't have to be a real big drawn out thing. You can see that we have only 3 pages for ours. Maybe it'll be simpler in Africa. We're certainly trying to make it simpler because a lot of African countries don't have the kind of bureaucratic system we do. But, we flat out know that there's no way that, all these millions of African people could have made that decision and knowingly signed up for themselves in the time period that we had. And we require that people know what they're doing because, we've been misused and abused by this system that was just shuttling us all over creation and issuing, clearinghouse certificates behind our backs and treating us like cattle. And that's just not the way we do business. We have to make the effort to be above board and to explain things to people. And, I'm sure there are many, many Africans that will be eager to sign up and eager to get relief. And we certainly, are in back of that 100%. But we can't just shotgun and arbitrarily be warehousing people like flocks of sheep and, dumping them in a new jurisdiction when they don't even know what it's about, So that's part of what's going on. We've been working on, the technical issues of, how you can have an identity in sub-Saharan Africa that is secure, right? But I think that's going to be more of a technical issue than anything. And, it'll be a matter of getting vendors secure with their vendor identity and the people secure with their individual identities so that they can just kind of, how when you're trying to share, say, an address between iPhones and you can just touch them together and they transfer? Is everybody familiar with that?
Yes.
Well, that's the kind of thing we're trying to work out for Africa so that they just have to, touch something like a ring or a bracelet or something. They have to touch it together and then the transfer just happens like that. But anyway, there's all sorts of technology involved in this too. But I'm kind of getting sidetracked. The situation with Hunter is that he went off the farm and we don't know why. We do know that he was heavily under the influence of Adrian Fonzie, and we know that he was what's called an M1 trustee in the current banking system for Sukarno. And it was it's a position where you're a trustee over cash resources that are basically owed to credit owners, right? And in a completely different context, apart from the Global Family Bank or anything that we were doing, this man was, supposed to assist in recouping some of the assets of the Avila family trust, which include the Alpha and Omega accounts, White Spiritual Boy accounts, and all these other derivative accounts in the World Bank where profit from using Avila family assets, physical assets, gold, silver, and all that stuff, were loaned out and came back as credit assets, right? So he was supposed to work with the World Bank to release some of the fiat credited assets that are owed to the Avila family trust so that those could start being deployed in support of our efforts, right? Basically the assembly's efforts and the federation and other government organization efforts, just seed money, right? And this was happening with the approval of the 3 trustees over the Avila Trust, right? But we didn't give him any what are called assignment rights. He was invited to look into it and investigate it and assist us in locating and targeting, who's the right person to talk to, those sorts of things. But apparently there were misrepresentations made to the effect that we had assigned him rights to, seize these funds from the Alpha and Omega account, and he was kind of putting himself out there and under false. Well, he was putting himself out there in a way that was not authorized by the trustees, that's for sure. And we had one uncomfortable, situation where my signature got rubber stamped to something that he wrote, and that's not kosher by any stretch. And there may have been at least one other occasion where my signature got rubber stamped on something that I did not read or approve. And I had to go back and say, no. So these sorts of things are not correct. These are not things that we can tolerate. And when this happened, I went to them and said, look, I didn't sign that. And it's not proper for you to make a representation that I did. So I want, I outlined exactly what I wanted in terms of, a retraction. And it was never retracted. They never took proper action to retract the announcement saying that this Go New Earth organization was going to take over senior administration jobs in the Global Family Bank. And so we had not given a British Crown Corporation any kind of expansive comptroller job over an American bank. Thank you very much. I certainly did not allow that. And, I cannot see how Hunter in good faith could allow something like that, because obviously we did not come this far and stay in our own jurisdiction only to have a British Crown Corporation circle around and put itself on top of us and start telling us what we can and cannot do and acting as a comptroller. So that kind of defeats the whole purpose of us organizing and chartering our own bank under our own law. Thank you. So I don't think, either Hunter never really understood jurisdiction, or he was blackmailed, as some people say. I haven't been able to talk to him, so I can't tell you the truth of the matter, but whatever it is, he was acting in an erratic fashion. He was doing some things that were not approved of, that were, major things that could have either served to commandeer the bank out of our control and reconstituted as a British Crown Corporation bank. And as I say, there were some things going on with transferring all these literally millions of accounts, another whole database that just got listed from somewhere. And apparently they thought that they had the right to just transfer all these corporations into into our system. And as you all know, the fundamental requirement is that you have to stand up and say that you're an American on the land and soil of whatever state, right? You just, you have to have some concept of what you're doing and who you are. And that was always a fundamental concept, and it was always the only requirement for anybody to get a global family bank account right from the very beginning when we chartered it. That was it. And you know, here's Hunter waving his hand and saying, "Oh no, we don't have to do that." Yeah, we do. If we want to keep our standing as a land jurisdiction trade bank, we most certainly do, and we want to keep that for our own protection. Thank you. And so there was that, and then yeah, just the crazy mistreatment of his support network. These people he's been working with night and day for 5 years. You know, just suddenly treating them like they were dirt and that they didn't matter was hardly in keeping with 528 and all of the, you know, the Bonhomie love and care kind of spiel here. And so there were things that were not adding up. There were things that were not right. And so we shut everything down. We fired Hunter as director. And we are now in the process of, you know, we're going to get someone else to act as bank director. And we're going to be taking over a lot of the computer functions so that we have security in the system and we know that the right jurisdictional issues are being addressed. And we have now got upward of 3 dozen new banks that are coming into the system, the Blue Dot system with us. And you know, I think we'll keep the name because it was chartered under us and that's the name we gave it. See, Hunter was just the director of the Global Family Bank. He wasn't the owner. The owner is the entity that charters it, right? So like that's what I mean. It's
Well,
sad.
if I could interject with a question, I think where it gets confusing is here we are in this sort of technological age, if you will, where we know that there is like master access, technology wise into the computers and the servers, et cetera. And so when you say that Hunter has been fired and removed from that position, are you also saying that access to the technology has been secured and locked down such that he no longer has access to the global family accounts of the men and women that have done their status corrected and have put money, you know, they've had their deposits made, but some have also put money into the vault?
So I mean that precisely, and that's what I said in the article.
Okay,
I
great.
don't see why anybody's having any kind of, you know, difficulty understanding. Don't panic. Your records are secure and your accounts are secure.
Well, I guess it's because there isn't a man or a woman that is accountable for the technology access.
Well, who do you think we are? How do you think that it was transferred over to our control? The Federation took control of everything last night.
Perfect. Okay, so you are the one and other people at the Federation that are
Yes, we took over the bank because we chartered the bank,
excellent.
period. And
Yes.
just because, Hunter fizzled out as director and went off on this wild tangent and started doing all this stuff without anyone's permission, um, you know, go figure. People go off the ranch sometimes and they get fired.
Well, I just think I think it's important for those who have they have long-term, like, I'm going to use the term investment because I'm not sure what other word to use. They've taken money, their fiat currency, out of their retirement accounts and IRAs and all of these things, stocks and bonds and whatever, and they've transferred everything over into the vault. And
I'm going to tell you something, Michelle.
uh-huh,
Outside of this little domestic market, all of that is totally worthless.
I know.
Okay.
Yep, I'm clear about
So,
that. Yeah.
and it's going to collapse in the domestic market too. Those FRNs are literally worthless. Okay. But the numbers of what you contributed are there. The record is there so that you will get your AFD. Okay. You're trading. This is a currency exchange. You're exchanging a Federal Reserve note and putting it aside in exchange for an AFD. Okay? And all that happens is that at a certain moment in history, there's a one-to-one conversion. All those Federal Reserve notes get converted into AFD. Just like you exchange Swiss francs for German marks. Okay, it's a currency exchange. I don't know if people have been thinking about this properly or not.
No, it definitely translates. What you're teaching us makes total sense. So that I don't think that part is the issue. I think the issue is when people go to the supermarket, let's say, and they want to purchase groceries. The supermarket is not yet ready for AFD. So they're still dealing with USD and FRN.
Right. Well, quite apart from, exactly how this FRN system is going to go down, it is going to go down. And there's already a complete exchange platform that's part of the bank that automatically exchanges, that automatically does that for you. So, if they're totaling up, oh, well, let's say you've got $300 worth of groceries. There is a function that automatically translates $300 of FRNs as a percentage of an AFD and deducts that and exchanges it. So you don't have to do any calculations. You don't have to worry about that at all. As long as the FRN is trading, it will have an exchange value. So, and then when it's no longer trading because it's been phased out, okay, I don't know how many of you are, I don't know how many of you here tonight are of an age to remember it, but in 1971, when Tricky Dick Nixon announced the petrodollar, that completely shut down silver certificates. Okay. And so the banks started taking silver certificates out of circulation and exchanging them for the new petrodollar Federal Reserve notes. That would now this is it just a switch of the paper, right? So it was no longer based on silver; it was now based on oil. And for our sake, for our country, it was based on refined oil. Okay. But anyway, the change from silver certificates to straight up Federal Reserve notes just was accomplished by the banks exchanging them. As people brought in silver certificates, they were simply exchanged for the new variety Federal Reserve note. And this is the same kind of thing where you've got different currencies and they're going to be exchanged for each other, but that'll take place at the level of the banks, just in the course of conducting your business.
So it'll be one of those things where it'll become commonplace for people to be able to spend AFDs when they go shopping. They want to buy groceries or they want to buy furniture or they want to get a new car or whatever. It's just a matter of us educating the proprietors of those stores and other retail establishments that this.
Well, and also your choice and the vendor's choice. Do
Mhm.
you want to use your prepaid credit or do you want to use your gold or silver money? Okay, some vendors will want gold. Some vendors will want silver. Some will want the credit, the prepaid credit, because they're using credit to buy stuff for their businesses. Okay, so this is going to open up some choices for you that you haven't had in the past. It'll be a little more complex than what you're used to, but it's not rocket science. And most of it's all automatic. Most of it's all built into the system so that you don't have to worry about it. It's just, okay, you're trading in AFD for this transaction and you're trading in prepaid credit Harmony dollars for this transaction and you're trading for heritage dollars in this transaction. 9/10 of it will be determined by the vendor. The vendor will have his machine set up to accept, he can choose, he's only going to accept AFD, or he's going to accept AFD heritage dollars and Harmony dollars. Whatever. Just like you could set up your system to accept German Deutschmarks and Swiss francs, okay? When it's an electronic system, it really doesn't matter because you're not dealing with physical things. It's just a computer program, okay?
No,
Now, one of the,
who's educating the retailers and wholesalers and the businesses that interface with those that might be deciding whether to spend their prepaid credit or their gold or their silver? Like is that up to the assemblies to educate the retailers and wholesalers? And
when the vendors come in and they join our vendor network, they get information and they get choices. They get to make their choices too. So it's actually a very simple system.
Mhm.
And now that we're, gathering steam and we've got more and more blue dot banks coming online, because people love the idea of the bilateral banking system because it gives everybody much more freedom. It gives everybody a lot more abilities to trade, and you don't have to be in commerce. Commerce is supposed to be business between incorporated entities. And what they've done by impersonating all of us as corporation franchises is set up the supposition that we're all functioning as corporations in commerce. You see how that was a trick to entrap people and legal presumptions that they were operating as a commercial entity? And they never told you that when you walked into a bank and set up an account, did they? It was all being taken care of behind the scenes, where you were being redefined as a corporation franchise, and they were, eager to provide you with commercial banking services, even though they knew damned well you weren't an incorporated entity. And that then provided the presumption that, oh, you're operating a franchise, therefore you're an authorized representative of this British Crown Corporation franchise that you don't own and don't even know exists. Therefore, you're liable for the debts of this franchise, and all of the money that's rolling in from investing your assets isn't going to you, but you're supposed to be paying taxes on it. It's a tax evasion scheme. It's a scheme to avoid their obligations under the constitutions. It was just plain a crooked system, and we're not building a crooked system.
No,
So,
we're restoring a lawful, commonsensical system.
right, based on real value instead of on accumulating debt. What kind of crazy person wants to accumulate debt?
Yeah, nobody.
Okay, and yet you're standing here tonight and you're talking to me about everybody's life savings. You know what that life savings is? It's
Debt.
debt. And as it turns out, it's debt owed by bankrupt corporations. So that's why it's worthless. But anyway, our job here is to protect the people and their assets, right? That's what the government is supposed to do. And so what we're doing is we're changing out debt for prepaid credit. And we're changing out debt for a limited number of Americans as AFD, because we're trying to provide an opportunity for people to recoup their buying power. Because if you look at this, what you've really lost since 1913 is buying power as a result of the fiat currency being repetitiously devalued through inflation. So if you watch what happened over the course of time from 1913 to today, you started out with a silver dollar being arbitrarily defined as equal to a Federal Reserve note. Okay? And now that they've inflated that over the course of the last 113 years, it's worth less than, last time I looked, less than 1/1000th of a penny.
Okay, well, this is where it gets really crazy for people. Okay, so in Los Angeles, there are these things called homeless encampments. Okay, where there are people, they might just be down and out, they might be drug addicted, they might be experiencing wartime, like post-traumatic stress syndrome or disorder, whatever. They might be severe alcoholics. They may have just gone bankrupt or been heartbroken and just couldn't cope and they have nothing to their name. And by a visual observation, one might say that, wow, they're broke. They're literally pooping in the street and they don't have food. They have to beg for food. They have to beg and plead. And then they have they sleep on the sidewalk, and it's really sad. It's a sad state of affairs, but it's very common and rampant, despite the millions of dollars being raised locally in these, quote, tax things that they're doing to try to solve this homeless crisis. So there they are with nothing. And then conversely, there are people that have mortgages. They have a first and second mortgage. They owe millions of dollars in credit to the banks, but they have electricity, they have food on the table, they have clothing, air conditioning, heating, fuel, energy, all of the quote luxuries of life. And this, Anna, this is a thing that your wisdom and your knowledge, especially because of your multi, I don't want to say jurisdiction. That's not the right word. You're like in different spheres of energy. Okay. Can you help us to understand why it is that the guy that lives under the bridge that is dirty and doesn't have clothes or food or shelter or clean water is actually wealthier monetarily than the guy that has, a $2 million mortgage and on the outside appears to be doing very, very well, right? There might be certificates or licenses or degrees on the wall. And they've got food in the fridge, cars, insurance, boats on the water. They've got their vacations and their kids have braces, or what you know what I'm saying? Like they're able to function in society but they might be $3 million in debt, but yet their life on the surface looks perhaps more desirable than living under a bridge.
Well, the irony here, Michelle, is that what we're talking about is an inheritance. Okay? Everybody has an inheritance. They all have a birthright inheritance. Okay? But if they don't step up and claim it, they don't claim it. You can waive your birthright inheritance. Okay? You can do that. If you claim it, well, then you're responsible for it. Then you have to take up the challenge of, creating your government and actually being responsible. It's that old thing about with rights go responsibilities, and with responsibilities go rights. So if you want your inheritance, you have to man up and woman up and actually stand there as a little flat-footed American on an American state and join your assembly and do what we're doing, okay? Now, as inheritors, we're very wealthy because, look, we have all these wonderful natural resources. We all have our part in the public pot, right? We all have have our share of all the public infrastructure. We all have our share of the natural resources of our state. And we all have our private things, our own belongings, okay? But on top of that, we have a tremendous amount of credit, prepaid credit that's owed to us. And so we're wealthy both in terms of physical assets that are ours, whether we're aware that they're ours or not, they're our inheritance. And we have a tremendous amount of prepaid credit that's owed to us. So on both those sides, we've got lots. And that's our inheritance. Now, some poor schmuck who's sitting under a bridge right now might not know that he's got an inheritance, but it's our moral duty to let him know he has an inheritance and, you know, open up a means to make it accessible to him. So that's our part. You know, in theory, I could have just claimed the entire country and not shared, right? In theory.
Yeah.
If I had been an immoral person, I could have done that. But I'm not an immoral person. So we go through this entire business of, you know, raising our hands and help, you know, trying to help everybody. And we want to, you know, like I said, that image of the old sailing ship coming across the water. Well, it might not be what you were expecting to see, but thank God you're out drowning in the ocean, okay?
That's exactly right. Thank you.
Here we are. And, you know, our old boat is afloat and there are other boats afloat. And it just so happens that we're in charge of all of the physical assets on Earth. So, you know, and we're owed all of this prepaid credit.
Virginia's last time. I had to wait for that shit.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Shannon. You're
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was here or there, so.
There.
I'll drop my business.
Thank you.
don't hit your head on the door there, Shannon. The door jam.
I know it's a, you know, it's a real problem for him sometimes. So
Well,
yeah, you know, we're not sitting here clammed up and not telling people that they have an inheritance. We're going out there and we're telling them, we're encouraging them to claim it. We're doing everything we can to make sure that they do claim it. We're set up to expedite them claiming it through our, you know, our simple systems. So all those people who are claiming their inheritance as Americans or as Brits or as Germans or, you know, South Africans or whatever, have that inheritance coming back to them. Now, they have, the Brits and the Romans have placed false claims on your inheritance. And that's part of what we're resolving now is how do we get the assets back that belong to the people? And the easiest way is for the people to stand up and say, hey, I'm not acting as a Roman citizen. I'm not acting as a British territorial subject. I'm, you know, a German. I'm a Canadian. I'm an Australian. I'm an American. You know, I'm a Wisconsinite. You know, so the quickest way to cut to the chase and actually get possession and have your name attached to your inheritance is doing exactly what we're doing right here, right now. And it's what I am encouraging everyone worldwide to do. And this is causing no end of corporate grief and angst because they can see us all leaving. And that just takes away their power, and that takes away their coercive power over us, and that destroys their monopolies and that puts an end to all of this. So they're trying to stop us. They're trying to, force us to act as their corporate franchises based on phony registrations. That isn't going to work. And unfortunately, people get fooled, they're like they're one step away from getting out of the prison, but then they get sucked right back into it. And I call that the revolving door, because the maritime monopoly is so pervasive that people inadvertently go right back through the revolving door, get identified as a British merchant commercial franchise, lose their privacy, lose their rights, lose their actual physical assets, which the Brits seize upon, right? Lose their intellectual property assets, lose control of their entire identity in this phony foreign system. So you can choose what's real, or you can choose what's an illusion. Okay? Totally up to you.
Yeah, well, I'm an eyewitness, especially because of talking to so many people that are they've been like growing with the assembly, but then something happens. It's like, next thing you know, the county is coming after their home regarding property taxes or regarding something. And then it's like they get to the wire because there's a time limit. And if they don't acquiesce by a certain date and their assembly isn't stood up yet and they don't have their lawful court yet, they choose between, do I lose my home and all the possessions inside of it and go to, have to fight them to get it back? Or do I acquiesce and write a check and just to buy more time? And I do see that that's a common thing that's happening right now. A lot of people thought,
I know, and there's no instant silver bullet. We're not dealing with vampires here, werewolves. We're dealing with a bureaucracy that has been on steroids and has been off track for 160 years. I mean, it's a giant bureaucracy. It's world spanning. And, I've tried to describe this. It's like trying to turn a super tanker around. It's not a little boat that you can just, pull a sail and whip around like nobody's business. No, this is like the biggest super tanker you can imagine, trying to, get it to come to heel and turn, And so this is it. I'm taking all sorts of actions right now to try to force the realization that inaction is a crime. Okay. It's a crime on many levels. And we've been trying to work through all these various differences and problems. And what it comes down to is this, that Pope Leo the 14th now has control, direct control of one whole giant parent corporation, and he's got controlling interest in the other giant controlling corporation. So, a lot of this stuff has got to get resolved at that ownership level. And so the pressure is on Robert Prevost to deal with the problems that have been caused by the misadministration of these giant corporations, these parent corporations. And even though it hasn't been the Roman Catholic Church per se, it has been the Roman municipal government, and it has been the British Crown Corporation. And so I'm recommending the dissolution and the nationalization of all these franchises.
That would be
So,
awesome.
well, and that would be the quickest, simplest, easiest way to do it. And maybe some of them actually need to be, dissolved down to their elements and, and have their CEOs publicly shamed or charged with crimes. There are some of them that are that bad and they deserve not just nationalization and having to come to heel under the land law, but also they deserve, total dissolution. I think there are some companies like Pfizer that deserve that. And so, that remains a possibility, but that needs to be applied carefully because if you just wholesale dissolved all of the corporations at once, it would cause complete social chaos for a long time while everybody was trying to figure out which foot they were standing on. If we nationalize these corporations, then all that happens is that they come under land law and they have to start operating properly.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. Now, switching gears a little bit, we do have 7 hands up for tonight, and I did see in the chat like that we've gone over this enough. So are you open to going straight to questions, or was there some training that you wanted to provide in addition to that before we go to questions?
Just, I'm actually glad that this happened now, because if we had a weak link in our chain, this is a good moment while we're still relatively small in numbers to have it happen. And now we're set up and greased to go and actually start bringing in large numbers of people and have it work right.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. All right, so we have actually we have 6 hands up now, and it is 6:21 Pacific time. How much time do we have with you tonight? What time should I wrap it up?
Well, let's try to do 5 minutes to each question, about 35 minutes.
Super. That sounds perfect. Okay, everybody, you heard it straight from Anna's mouth. And when if it's getting once it gets over 5 minutes, I'm going to be doing a little clock that looks like this going up. It's not because I'm trying to stifle your voice or limit what it is that you have to say, but more as a symbol of, all right, let's, if we can move along and get to the next question. So we have 6 hands up at this time. It's 6:22 Pacific, and our first hand up is David Hera. Go ahead, David. And you're muted. Go ahead and unmute.
Okay, took me a while for that to happen.
That's okay. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, Anna. I have a very simple question. It certainly won't take 5 minutes. Um, when when six states walked out and left less than a quorum
Mm-hmm.
of that 13,
Mm-hmm.
what was their quorum requirement at that time? Was it 2/3? I mean, obviously it wasn't a majority, or they would have continued. So it must have been 2/3 or 3/4, or what? Do you know?
And I don't know off the top of my head whether it was 2/3 or 3/4. We have that information. The information that's more obscured is what kind of a Congress it was, and the fact that all of the members of the Confederation were states of states, and that's what Confederate state meant. But anyway, yeah, we have that somewhere. I've seen it.
Okay.
But yeah,
But
it was more than just a majority. And I believe it was all the southern states pulled, and they just could not get a quorum to conduct business for the states of America. And without the states of America being operational, there was nobody in charge. The states of America the Confederation doing business as the States of America was the actual contract holder. They're the ones that actually got the contract to provide the delegated services. So when they went out of business, or, you know, in effect went out of business because they couldn't come up with a quorum, that left the Federal Republic adrift without, you know, a sponsor and without an obvious contract and comptroller, you know, supporting their work.
Mhm.
So that's
Okay,
what
thank
happened.
you. That pretty that gives me the answer. Obviously, it was around anyway more than 50-50. So, okay,
Yes, it was.
thank you, Anna. I'll yield and give my time to the next person. Thank you. Okay, bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you, David. Okay, next up is Mike on Colorado. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks for bringing us up to date, Anna. What? How does the global bank get funded in the interim time or whatever? Because I was always under the impression that Hunter was building all this out of his own personal assets.
We have assets, and our bank partners have assets. We're really not worried about funding. We're just concerned that the operation of the bank is within jurisdictions and it's not going out into the wrong lane, okay?
Right.
So
Yeah,
we,
very curious.
with our trade banks, we can issue the AFD, and with our commercial banks, we can issue the prepaid credit. And, you know, it's a matter of us getting our access to our, not only the trust assets, but those other funds that are ours. So once we get I keep saying this, it's really pretty simple. We're not corporations. We're not acting as corporations. And these parent companies, these parent corporations are in the crosshairs to be taken down and nationalized. Okay, so the church has wanted to have one world government for a long time, all under the auspices of the office of the Pope. Of course, that's anathema for a lot of people. They don't want that model. They want their national governments. And so this is the struggle we're having. But it isn't that we don't have money, and it isn't that we don't have gold. In fact, if you want to look at it, America has sort of a mutually assured destruction position with the rest of the world when it comes to gold and silver, because America has utterly vast amounts of gold and oil. We have one chunk of gold that's like a cork sitting in the earth, 26 square miles of gold that goes straight down into the earth. Imagine that. And then we've got gold all along the West Coast, all the way up to Alaska. We have veins of gold that are just incredible. So the game has been, since 1908, keeping us out of the gold market and keeping us from mining our gold, because if we brought our gold resources into trade, then it would reduce the price of gold worldwide. You see, the supply would go so far up that we would lose the price that they've been charging for gold per ounce. So the deal has been since 1908 that we would not produce our own gold, and everybody else would continue to rig the gold market through LIBOR and London and those sorts of organizations. You know, there would be this the London silver market, the London gold market would set the price, right? So all this arbitrary rigging of the precious metals market was going on as far back as 1908. And our part in it was to keep our noses clean, and in exchange, everybody else would buy stuff from us, and everybody would, you know, keep the infant terrible happy. So if anyone tries to tell you that America doesn't have gold, we've got huge amounts of gold. And they found the city of El Dorado, except that it's not on top of the ground. It's in the earth. It's in, you know, it's in the Grand Canyon. They found that in the early part of last century too. And they found huge, huge amounts of gold that's already been mined and it's been smelted and made into objects by this society, this culture that lived in the Grand Canyon that had obviously had contact with Egypt. Just a second, guys, I have to take this.
No problem, Anna. All right, you guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pause the recording until she can get back. Stay tuned. You're a coordinator on the call tonight, and you know that there are people on your assembly that are intending to go to the family reunion in Pennsylvania in September. Please make sure that your assembly receives the information that Jill is putting into the chat. It is very important for planning purposes, for a room, for food, for the tours. She's putting an inordinate amount of work into making sure that those who show up have a clear plan of action and the gathering places, and she needs to know if you're coming or not. So please, please, please go to the chat and share Jill's, you know, she put a chat in there. Copy that whole chat and make sure that your assembly has that information for planning purposes. September's going to be here before we know it. That's like 60 days away. So thank you, Jill, for letting us know that. Thank you for the reminder, and we'll keep pounding that drum. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me put in that, Jill, I couldn't find your email anywhere. And it's just my system. It's just some crazy, you know, system error. So if you could send the email to me again, I would appreciate it.
Okay, I will do, Anna. Thank you.
Okay, dear. Rocky Roper, are you next?
Yeah, next up, we've got Rocky Roper. Go ahead, Rocky Roper.
That's a good one. Anna, we talked last week about the 4 pillars on the Union State and the counties. What I wanted to know is, in the business assembly part of it, is the business assembly all of the people in your county? Or is it, you know, it's only SNs or ASCs or only SCs? What would be in the business assembly?
That would be everybody.
Everybody?
Yep.
And then
anyone who wants to be.
Yeah. Everybody that's willing.
Yeah, you see the problem there is that at the county level, you're all sovereign, truly
Right.
sovereign, and you're not citizens, you're nationals, and you're operating in your true living capacity.
Right. Now, as far as the Union State, is that the counties would pick like 2 delegates or 3 to be in the business of the Union State, or is it everybody also in every county?
The Union State typically has its own body,
Uh-huh.
know? And then you're dealing with soil jurisdiction issues.
Right.
You
But
don't have you don't have any international issues at all.
right.
You
Yeah,
just
but you're dealing with county to county, stuff like that, everything on the soil.
everything on
And
the soil, and that really does mean that this is the true national level government.
right.
When you stitch all the counties together,
Hmm.
that's where you're on the soil, and
Hmm.
this is where pedal hits the metal for living people.
Right.
We wound up doing the State of the Union state first because
Hmm.
of the fraud that had been committed against us. But I think it's important to understand that the states that we've been building are international in nature, whereas the Union states are national in nature.
Right. Yeah. So how would like all the counties, like you're saying, they would pick people to be in the business assembly for the Union State so that you would have a body doing that, a set of people.
Yeah, you'd probably have why don't you let me look into that over the course of the week? Because that's,
Okay.
yeah,
Because
there
I
are
know
records.
yeah, I know
There are things.
through your documents and how to build assembly and those ones, different ones that was put out, that we pick two or three people as electors or delegates that go to the state,
Right.
right? But I wanted to know in between there, what do we do for just as Union State? You know what I'm saying? Not moving them up into that far, right? And
Well,
what you're saying is you need to look at because and I want, something more concrete too. I want you to really understand what it is that we need so we can correct it right. You know what I'm saying? Or do it right. You know what I'm saying?
right. And since you don't have really an international business assembly, you nonetheless have a business assembly.
Right.
And, how does that business assembly connect across county lines to other counties to create the Union State? And once you have the Union State, what does that mean?
Right.
What issues is the Union State responsible for
Right.
versus the State of the Union?
Right. You got it exactly what I'm thinking.
Right.
That's exactly what I need to know. So,
Yeah, well,
we're doing the book, and I want to make sure when we do the book, we got the right information in it on how this needs to be done. It's just so it gives us some guideline. You know what I'm saying?
right. And there are some extant records that we know of that give us some answers about this. So
Hmm.
I will dig around this week and see what I can come up for.
I would really appreciate it. I know
Okay.
you're so busy, and I hate to put anything else on you. I know, but anyway, I'm going to yell. Thank you very much.
Take care, Rocky.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Rocky. And thank you, Anna. Okay, next up we have John Russell. Go ahead, John Russell.
Good evening, Anna. How are you this evening? You look pretty tired to me.
Feel
You
like a
gotta get some
chihuahua on a waxed floor.
you gotta get some rest tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Very good. Thank you. Uh, Saturday on the 4th, we had the Peach Festival. I
Yes.
sent I sent you a picture of our setup we had there.
Yes, you
And we
did.
had 13 people sign up for South Carolina. So we followed up with them with an email and hopefully they'll keep up with it. And the peaches were the size of a softball.
I had to laugh, John. There were some people trying to tell me that the South Carolina Assembly didn't exist, and I was just imagining them having to sit there and look at you and say it didn't exist.
Well, they can say that if they want, but we're here.
Yep, you're there.
So, alrighty, I thank you, and you get some rest, please.
I'm going to.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, John Russell. Okay, next up we have Janice, our co-coordinator for the California Assembly. Go ahead, Janice.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, Anna. I
I
know you're tired, but you're always looking really good. My question is about recording secretary fees. Can an individual county elect to keep all funds generated by the recording secretaries and refuse to share any with the state?
No, if they're recording people coming back home, whether they're coming from the county or the state, if they're collecting fees for recording, at this point, it's going into the established State of the Union databases, right? Yeah, so that's still State of the Union, and really the state of the Union state doesn't have that function because it's not international.
So it's appropriate to assume, or based on what you're saying, that the funds go to the state and then get divvied out to the counties appropriately who have bank accounts?
When a county recorder helps someone get on the land and soil, it's actually a State of the Union function. They're basically acting as a American helping other Americans in their community get on the land and soil. It's it's a State of the Union function. It's international in nature. It's getting plugged into our databases, and what will become more apparent over time is that these are integrated databases, and there will be much more communication back and forth between the Union state and the State of the Union, right? But that it's not there yet because the counties aren't organized enough yet. So in the meantime, if you're doing recorder fees and you're doing it as a county recorder, but it's a State of the Union function, you should be sending the information to the State of the Union LRO, number one. And number two, anything that you do of that kind in terms of collecting receipts, if you're not going to have some sort of standardized fee or whatever in your county for that, you should consider if you are, since you're doing it into the state LRO, it should go to the Union state for now. At some point in the future, I'm sure the county recorders will be fully funded and they'll be working, with the State of the Union, and everybody will be getting paid and it'll all work out. But for right now, try to keep pumping the money toward the State of the Union LRO system.
So we have 3 counties currently who have bank accounts, and in the past they have within themselves elected to keep all of these funds. So I believe the comprehension is that they are jurisdiction above the state, which we know that they are, but in this case, is it reasonable to expect, or do we need to unbound that which was bound by them at the state level? How do we get everybody?
They don't have a state level yet, and they're using the State of the Union LRO, and frankly, those records are international records. They're not county level records. So those records need to be transferred to the State of the Union. They're not, you could take a copy of them since you're recording them, just like you normally would, take a black and white copy to cover your own butt, right? And then, send the information in a black and white copy onto the state.
Okay.
Because we have had lots and lots of discussions about nationality records and records that are formed on the counties versus records that are formed on state land jurisdiction offices, land recording offices in the past. And it's really fascinating. They try to two block you because you have to have the land before you have the county. But in realistic terms, the county has more to say about your day-to-day life. So
Awesome.
anyway, that's
Thank you, Anna.
that's how that works.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Anna. I yield.
Take care, dear.
Thank you, Janice. That's a really important question, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Okay. Next up, we have David Gall, also on the California Assembly. Go ahead, David, unmute, and there you go.
Thank you. Yeah, just to dovetail on what Janice said before I ask my next question, what I think the issue is partly is the sequestering of funds. And we brought the issue up to the General Assembly at our last General Assembly meeting. And the Treasury has been running really thin on assets. And it became apparent that there's a whole bunch of money in different county assemblies that has never been forwarded to the state assembly. And so it was decided at the previous General Assembly meeting that they needed to forward their money to the state assembly. And what we got in response was one of the county recorders, or one of the state recorders for the one of the counties, then came on our last General Assembly meeting with a list of stipulations and conditions that was going to preempt their assembly from forwarding monies to the state assembly. So they didn't deny that the state was the proper holder or should be the proper holder of the state funds, but they were just going to add conditions before they're ever going to send it forward. So I just wanted to add that to it too, so that you would have a more full picture of what's going on. But
Well,
my next, go ahead, I'll let you answer that, and then I'll ask my next question.
I just want to say that recorders have got a crucial job, whether they're working at the county level or the state of the union level. But that process of recording people and getting them back on the land and soil is actually an international function. So it's a state of the union function. And, you know, we're kind of between a rock and a hard place in that we want to get as many people back on the land and soil for their sakes, right? We want to save as many Americans bacon as we can. So whether it's a county officer doing the recording, or it's a state officer doing recording, or it's a State of the Union officer doing the recording, we're all in the same boat here, and we need to be supporting the LRO. Sometime in the future, there'll be a county recording office. Sometime in the future, there will be a state land recording office. Okay. And everybody will have their expertise and everything will be sorted out and in line. But right now, we don't have that luxury. All we've got is the LRO, and the LRO is at the State of the Union level. So you're essentially, even though you're a county officer, you're working for the State of the Union LRO. And I think it's wonderful that you're doing the work and you're getting the people signed in, and that they're getting their status corrected so that they have standing and they have their inheritance claim. But try to share the money out with the LRO, because number one, the LRO needs it. And the State of the Union is taking the brunt now. So try to support them.
You know, one of the issues that we've been having, Anna, is that as a state, we'd like to be able to contribute more money to federation, but we don't have access to the funds ourselves. So that was the impetus for us bringing that issue up with the counties. So my next question is actually a repeat from last week where we ran out of time. And because I'm not a recording secretary and I'm not familiar with how the LRO runs, I'm going to yield to either Janice or Michelle, and maybe they can bring up the question that we had last week about trying to figure out the names of the people that are being recorded by the recording secretaries, because we're not getting access to the names properly on the LRO. So I'll yield and let Michelle or Janice bring that issue to the forefront here. I'm not sure if we're the only state that's having the issue, and so that's why I'm bringing it back up to see if any other states have been going through the same thing. And with that, I yield. Thank you.
What do you mean by the names? Is it actually like the spelling of the names, or the names aren't complete, or is it just in general the claim, the paperwork itself is incomplete, or you're not getting the paperwork?
May I respond to that, Anna? This is Nancy Brainerd.
Sure.
So a couple years ago, the LRO changed quite a bit. And we used to be able to download reports where we'd have all of a person's information, their mailing address, their email address, their home address, all of their information, so that we could email them and put them on our records. Now, we don't have access to that. You can finagle a report, but it's not in full. We don't know. We can't see who the recording secretary was. You have to log into each individual man and woman in order to see their records. And that is so time consuming. We've got over 800 people, and I don't have the time to do that. None of the recording secretaries. So we don't even know what's going on. Once they purchase a credential card, everything's blocked out. So when I pull up a man or woman, the only thing is I see is their name and their recording number. I would have to pull them up individually to see their paperwork, but I don't see their address. I don't see any information at all. So that's part of it. But also, in the last 2 weeks, many of our people who have an account on the American States Assembly LRO have received emails from a ASN LRO, which is owned by can't even remember his name, Chris Martin out of California. And apparently they can have an electronic transfer of their documents over to this new LRO. And so my question is, along with what California is asking, is Chris Martin is on the tech team of the American States Assembly. We've asked on Texas, because we've built our own LRO, and you've seen it. We've asked for an electronic transfer of just the people on Texas, and we've gotten no response. But now we're seeing this other LRO, which is fine. It's a private LRO. People can go there, but why are we being blocked from our own people, yet they've got this access? And people, all of the states have been locked out, and it's really gotten awful to use the Federation American States Assembly LRO.
Okay, well,
So,
may have,
And Anna, may I?
sure.
I'd like to add to that. I texted you today because I've received reports from 3 other states where suddenly all of their pending intakes that were on the American States Assembly, LRO, have been removed. And those people are getting email, and the recording secretaries are getting email from this ASN LRO that they now have their records. Would they like to correct their status? They're essentially they're pirating those records over to their private LRO, and then soliciting the people to use their service.
No, that's not right. I'll get hold of Chris and get that straightened out. He's
I
got to
mean, those
drum
are
up his own business. Thank you.
right. They're state records. They belong to the states and to the people. They
Right.
don't belong to anybody else. And I see that as a breach, truly, of fiduciary duty on their part if that's what they're doing.
Well, yeah, it sounds like the LRO needs some work. Terry has been going through hell, and a lot of things have kind of gone by the wayside, but we're in a position to help, and we can start getting some of this stuff straightened out. You've given me a good laundry list.
Thank-
Yeah, and Chris
It
knows
needs to
better
be
than that.
it needs to be looked into because there's something is not right. And like I said, I've gotten reports from 3 different states, and I've just passed those on. One, just a comment or two, and I think it needs some attention because it's wrong that they're taking the state intake lists away.
Absolutely, that's completely not kosher.
Correct.
So Chris, if you're out there tonight, stop. That's not your bailiwick.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
And okay, thank you, David, and also thank you, Lisa and Anna. All right, next up we have Alexandra on Missouri. Go ahead, Alexandra.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good. My question for you, Anna, is I'm curious as to kind of an update on everything you're doing regarding how it affects the family courts. Because I currently have an appeal going and it directly will affect my daughter. So I was just kind of wondering if you had an update on that.
Well, we're trying our best at the highest levels to get the district courts shut down and sent back to the District of Columbia where they belong. And there are a lot of reasons why that needs to happen. The question is, what do we replace them with? Well, and also the whole issue of our people being redefined behind their backs as commercial corporation franchises. That's all bullshit too. And so, what right does a district court or a municipal family court have to be interfering in the personal lives of living people and children? They really don't. What they've done is they've created a joint venture. They've redefined marriage as a business joint venture between corporation franchises. And then they've, latched on to the children as products of this joint venture between these two incorporated franchises. And it's all just complete and utter bull. It's all based on fraud and, coercive power being misapplied to living people. And so the big question everybody is wrestling with, especially with family courts, those are municipal courts. What replaces them? There needs to be some kind of a community organization or some kind of way that we can protect children that are actually at risk. Kids who are living in homes that both parents are addicted to meth and everybody's starving other than the meth habit. What are you going to do? What's the basis by which a culture can address those kinds of issues without recourse to these bizarre, um, you know, manipulations of identity. Okay. I'm sure nobody has an answer to that one yet. And I'm afraid that the district court system as a whole is so corrupt and so rotten that the whole thing just needs to go, including the municipal courts at the state and county levels. But we have to replace them with something that is American and common law, which means a whole bunch of people need to step up and learn their own history and learn to administer American common law courts. And, you know, it's a tremendous amount of work we got going out there, folks, and a tremendous amount of need. And part of what's blocking our way to freedom and decency is just the fact that there aren't enough people stepping up to form those court functions.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna. Next up, we have Marlene on Washington. Go ahead, Marlene.
Hi, Michelle. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Marlene.
Just wanted to let Anna know that there'll be a package coming in her mailbox, so be looking for it. Back to the LRO. We just for Washington did a audit of the LRO because before it got changed, we were able to get the addresses and all the information. Then they said it was because of security that they took the addresses off. But when the man or the woman signs up there, I'm a recording secretary for Washington. When the man or woman signs up and does their paperwork, that information is given to us under protection. We are protecting their identity with our paperwork that we receive from them. And so it doesn't make any sense for the recording secretaries, since we go into the LRO as an official, that we wouldn't have access to that information. But also, to make it even more convoluted, with Global, when they sign up for Global, we're supposed to get information from Global that says Sally and Billy Bob signed up today on Washington, so that we can reach out to them and help them to education and all. We have never received not one thing from anyone.
Well, you
And
know
so I just wanted to make sure that you also knew that part of it, because that is a important part. But I do want everyone to know that we are responsible for other people's information and their identity, which you would agree. And it is under lock and key. So, and if you don't have a lock and key, you should probably get one. And I'm sure your assembly would front you the funds to get a locking cabinet. But I appreciate everyone's comments and the education we had tonight. And Anna, I'm sorry that you have to go through this craziness, but I understand what you're saying is we're blessed that it happened now. So sending you hugs and kisses, and thank you for being you and the best
Thank
you.
you, Paul. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Marlene. I think we managed it, guys. We got all through the questions tonight.
This is Doug.
My
I have one question about what Marlene said.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. So Anna, is the what was it? Yeah. So the publish means public, right? So there has to. So
Yes.
So when something is published, it's got to be in the public domain.
Basically, it is in the public domain.
Okay,
We
but
don't
not
publish
if it's
birth certificates because
not the
those
way,
are-
yeah, not the way GFG has been handled. I yield.
yeah, well, GFG was under Hunter's directorship, it turns out was doing, probably, I don't know, half a dozen things that weren't exactly right, that were not the way they were supposed to be done. But we found them. We're finding them as we go.
Okay,
And
well, I just wanted to point that out. I yield.
yeah, that it is a public record. And we have to cover our butts by keeping a black and white copy of things that we use to generate a account for somebody, because the primary requirement to claim your inheritance is to stand on the land and soil. And I think there was a misunderstanding on the part of the military, because they're in a status where they cannot go home and stand on the land and soil. They're in a federal status, right? And while they're on active duty or in the reserves, they can't just go back and do that. They can't get that kind of a master account because they're not standing on the land and soil. And that certainly does, it rankles. I mean, and it's understandable why it does. But just like any other federal employee, they can establish their claim and come forward and claim to be an American. They just have to wait till they get back on the land and soil to establish a master account. That doesn't keep them from getting assistance. That doesn't keep them out of the prosperity system or anything like that. That you're still an American. You still have an inheritance. You can still claim your inheritance. You just can't gain complete control of it until you're back on the land and soil. And I know that a lot of people don't understand that. It seems very unfair. And, in days to come, when we get this all sorted out, and Americans have the respect and the freedom and the control of their maritime and admiralty jurisdictions again, then none of that will matter. Then it will all just be seamless. But the Brits have got to be brought to the negotiation table, and these ancient 250-year-old treaties, or almost, in the case of the treaties that went into the back of the constitutions, need to be revisited. They need to be renegotiated. It's been a long, 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 long time since the British Navy was the predominant force on the ocean. And it's been a long time since the British monarch had any reason or right to be our trustee on the navigable inland waterways or the high seas. So some of these things have to be revisited, renegotiated, and brought into modern times. And that will make everything a lot easier. Okay, well, I see I'm collecting more questions as I go. I should just quit and run.
Yeah, zip it, Anna, and then the hands won't go up. No, I'm just joking. Okay, all right. We do have a couple hands. Is it okay to take two more hands?
I guess. Yep, but that's it, kids. I'm going home.
That's it. Two more hands. That's it. Don't put your hand.
She's going home. She's going to go home. You're going to hit the barn.
All right. Mark Parker. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. Yeah. So I'd like to have a comment or an assessment of what I wrote in the chat concerning the bank. it can be done offline. Just somebody can read through it, see if I've got any kind of an idea what's going on. I think it comes down to three items. One is if the vault is safe. Two, uh, let's see, if the millions of Africans are put in the system, it doesn't seem like it's going to affect the rest of us because any shares are divided down by the 8 billion people, and if they get theirs first, it's like if we get ours first, we don't subtract from anybody else getting theirs later. So it doesn't seem to be a problem. And well, read through the comment. It makes it easier than me trying to do it by voice.
Well,
That's
do
all.
you have a question, Mark?
Yeah, the question is, do I have a proper understanding of what's going on with the bank per what I've written in the chat? And that's all.
Could you, for the benefit of the audio and the video, can you read what your question is from the chat?
I forgot about those people. Yes.
And
Okay.
question, she's not necessarily reading, what's going on in the chat.
Okay.
Well,
Since the system is set up for serving 8 billion people, any funds returning is going to be divided into 8 billion parts or something like that. Our share comes to us without any loss if someone else receives their share first. Like nobody else has a loss if we receive our share first. The other bottom line is of the millions of people who were brought in from Africa, the only effect seems to be is their funding going to affect the world government? Are they going to fund something we don't want to have funded? And the other problem is the vault going to be safe? If the vault's safe and we're not funding other things, it's a disconcerting thing, but not a real issue. I yield.
well, the bottom line is that we are fantastically wealthy as a country. And, we have a rich country with lots of natural resources. And so our accounts reflect that. Africa is a very rich country in natural resources. And even though they have more people than we do, they have a much larger continent that they share, and they also have a lot of resource and wealth as a result. What they don't have as much of is prepaid credit, because they tended to do all of their business pretty much on a barter and, multi different national currencies and much more varied system. They did not use the fiat system as much as we did, and so they did not accumulate the vast amount of prepaid credit that we have. But anyway, you're right. It's no skin off of anybody's nose for people to get what they need in terms of living. And, the details of exactly how much and where and when and how is less important than making this transition out of the monopolized maritime bank system and getting to a point where people can live and breathe and trade and do what they needed to do again without being denatured and impersonated as corporations. So I think that you're correct that no, it's no skin off of our nose who gets funded first or who has liquidity first. The big problem that we face in Africa is that while there are many people who are very technologically savvy and who have smartphones and iPads and all that kind of stuff, there are also many people who don't have access and don't have iPhones or, cell phones or all these other things and don't know how to use them. So how do we keep those who are technologically savvy from preying upon those who aren't? How do we make sure that people have secure individual accounts that they keep track of and that they know how to use? That's the problem in Africa. There's a great amount of fraud and cutthroat activity where they're trying to, right now, one of the problems that we had in South Africa was people were charging exorbitant costs to get signed up, you know, on the global system. And as a result, people were suffering, you know, and there was even a case where the system was being hijacked in a way that was people were accessing other people's accounts and, you know, taking funds that were intended for them. So we've got a lot of problems with graft and crime in Africa. We've got a certain percentage of those who are technologically savvy who are immoral and are stealing from they're trying to steal before the accounts are even funded. So it's a bad situation, and it's one that we can't afford to get. We can't afford to go in there, however much our hearts are with the people of Africa. We can't just go in there willy-nilly without a good security system. So that's one of the things. But no, we're not holding back. We're just trying to work through the technological and practical problems of Africa. So I hope that answered the question. You are correct.
Yes. Yeah. I'm one of those people who, as an engineer, should be up on computers and stuff. I hate cell phones. I hate having to use any kind of computer because I'm locked out of half the programs I try to log into here, and we're trying to work out the technical issues, but I don't like them. It just it shows up.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get to something that, like I say, is so simple that it's just like touching two cell phones together and having the important information transfer just like with a touch. And so that's where I'm headed with this. And, you know, with the kind of technology we have today, we can do that. We don't even have to use cards and swipes and all that kind of stuff that we've been using.
Yeah, I yield.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, I'm going to call it tonight. I am a tired little camper and I need to get, if not horizontal, at least I need to get some dinner and start, you know, relaxing. Okay, guys?
Thank you for being here, Anna. We so appreciate you, especially, you know, fielding these tough questions.
Well, we're trying to get all of this stuff straightened out. And I'm actually glad that we did it now and that everything happened now before we started, you know, spooling up and having millions of people that were legitimately part of the program and the, you know, the entire effort. Okay, guys.
Anna, it's Jill. I sent you that email again, so look for it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jill.
Yep.
Hugs and kisses, everybody.
We love you.
Have a wonderful week. God bless.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you,
Night,
everyone else.
Anna.
Good night to you.
Thank you
Night.
for being part of this.
Bubble bath.
Thank you,
Bubble
Michelle.
bath.
Good night.
Thank you, Anna.
Good night. Thank you, Anna.
Good night, Anna. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Jason and Nadia.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, everyone. Don't forget to respond to Jill.
I got your question there, Michelle. Thank you. And I will send an email out the day after on the 16th. So if you signed up, you should get an email. So if you didn't get one, let me know. Contact us in the Pennsylvania Assembly, and I'll make sure you get yours. Thanks, everybody.
Michelle, I'm
Doug.
glad you
May I?
finally answered your questionnaires.
Woohoo! I'm so proud.
That's good. Thanks for everything, Michelle.
You're welcome. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, everybody. Now go ye forth and multiply. We'll see you.
This is Doug. I got a couple quick things.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, is last week's coordinator call going to be up on the Mop and Bucket?
Yeah, it should already be. I did it like the next morning. Is it not up?
No, it wasn't up yesterday.
Okay, I will check on that. I did it literally the next morning. I'll see if there's any issues with it being.
Okay, and the other thing is on that call, I spent quite a bit of time talking to Anna about our silver bullet and what it could do. And, you know, it's really, it's growing week by week what it realized that it actually is and what it's capable of. So it's not quite right to say that we don't have any recourse because we don't have any courts, because the silver bullet is actually running your own court. And when you file a lien, you put your court record on the public record. You know, we usually use the state, Secretary of State for Colorado because it's only an $8 filing and it's 24/7. And you just throw your documents on there, and then you've got an estoppel with the silver bullet. You run the court and said, you know, tell me I'm wrong, and they don't tell you you're wrong. They never respond, and so you get a default judgment against them. So and then you can just bring that into your court case. Say that you know that. So this is, you know, I asked Anna about estoppel in pay. That's spelled PINPAIS, estoppel in pay. And if you look that up at Cornell Law, it says, you know, somebody that tries to assert a right when they've committed fraud, you know, which is exactly what the de facto does. So anyways, you know, when that gets up, everybody listened to, it was towards the end of the conversation last week. And if you got any other questions, come to our Monday class at 4 o'clock. I believe that's on the California link tree, isn't it, Michelle?
Yeah, Tanya is updating the link tree, and if I'm not mistaken, it is up there. Christy Lieber.
Okay. Yeah, so that's 4 o'clock on Pacific time, you know, 2 hours before Anna's call on Mondays. I yield.
Super. Thank you so much, Doug. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. Don't forget to share about your local assembly, your county. Sometimes because of social media, we focus sometimes on international and global issues that have nothing to do with what we're called to do right here on our own assemblies. So use your time and energy and resources locally. That's the only way we're going to be able to make any significant headway in this stand-up process. So thank you for being here tonight, everybody, and we'll see you next Thursday. And I'll double check that post from last week, Doug, to make sure it's up on the Mop and Bucket.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome. All right, good night, everybody. Thank you. Go ye forth and multiply.
Good night, Michelle.
Good night. Thanks, Alice. Good night.